development aid is more efficient. The Zurich-based foundation will present its DearMamma project and will answer to your questions. We are happy to welcome today to speak about this topic the following distinguished panelists. So we have Sonia Diner, the president of the Dear Foundation, who is a global aid entrepreneur. On my right, Serim Araz, director of the Dear Foundation. And on the far right, Misha Becker, project lead mobile of Seracom GmbH. Before giving the floor to Mrs. Araz, I would like to ask our guest, as it is the tradition here, to sign our gold book and to receive a little present. So it's a book.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
You can hear some.
Okay.
The conference will be held in English, but if you wish to have interviews after, I think Sonia is speaking very good French also. No? And Misha also. So, Mrs. Araz, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Just press yes.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here in Geneva. Thank you. My name is Sylvie Murat. I'm the director of the Dear Foundation. I would like to express our gratitude to Monsieur Tobias Clerc and to the Club Suisse de la Presse for hosting this event. The Dear Foundation is one of Switzerland's largest private development aid foundations. Today, we will give you an insight why private development aid is more efficient than state development aid. State development aid is constantly the subject of criticism and is now reaching its limits. The central accusations are as follows: inefficiency, corruption, and lack of control. The Swiss government is now focusing on priority regions and direct payments to the people affected. Regions that are no longer the focus of attention are facing funding cuts. Private aid organizations, such as the Dear Foundation, specifically operate in places where state development aid has been reduced or eliminated. Today, we will exemplify the efficiency of private development aid with our presentation, which includes our biggest global project, the DearMamma campaign. The DearMamma campaign includes a documentary and a cutting-edge mobile app that teaches millions of illiterate women in dozens of countries to perform self-examinations of their breasts. Our main objectives are early detection and to break the taboo associated with breast cancer. In contrast of other breast cancer movements, the DearMamma campaign is reaching out to the most vulnerable populations, and we aim to reach 1 billion women worldwide. At the Dear Foundation, we believe that this campaign will transform the fight against breast cancer by empowering the women themselves to take control of their own struggle in a supportive and informed environment. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand the stage over to Mrs. Sonia Diner, the president of the Dear Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out today. We know how hard it is to come and how much you have to do. And we would really like to draw your attention to basically two focuses. One is, why is private development aid very often more effective? What are the tasks or the challenges governmental aid has? What are the differences? And then we would like to jump into one example of our projects. We have actually running over 140 projects worldwide. We have in our offices in Zurich, in Monrovia, and in Jerusalem, we have 12 people, which are the core team. And we have something like 200 people in the projects around the world, which are always locals, of course. And maybe I would like to start with one very important sentence. Philanthropy is not an exact science. It would be so much easier if it was physics or mathematics or whatever, because then you could say, well, this way is right and this way is wrong. And we're not in that situation. So sometimes it's very hard to judge what we have been doing, to measure the impact we actually had. There have been several things which have been going up. Some good ones and some very bad ones. One of the, in a way, good ones is that the world had never seen as much money as we have today. That's, of course, because the central banks, European, American, Japanese, many others, the British, have been producing money like we never ever had before. I still have this 50 billion ticket from my grandmother at home, year 1933, 50 billion, so I'm ultra rich, and it was worth nothing, even not a loaf of bread. So it shows how dangerous that movement is, and it affects us in philanthropy in a very strong way. The other thing which also went up are words and news. Coming from IT, we never ever had so many news available as we have today. It is my claim, at the end of the day, we do not know one thing more than we did 50 years ago. We have a lot of things which are not true, which are manipulated, and it's just hard to tell the difference. And the other thing which went up and which went down, this is kind of a two-sided thing, is today we have the wonderful news that we have 2 billion people worldwide, which came out of tremendous poverty into a certain standard of middle class. It all happened in Asia, not in Africa, interestingly enough, and not in Europe, of course. So this is the good news. The bad part is poverty has grown in so many countries. They just don't get out of their negative struggle. Has to do with birth rate, has to do with major natural catastrophes, with political uproars, with all kinds of things. So this is very, very negative. And for the people in conflict, I'm just mentioning Yemen, I'm mentioning Syria. I mean, it's a disaster. While we speak here, I mean, hundreds of people are suffering, dying, whatever. So we're in a very complex environment. And what we certainly cannot promise you today is simple answers. Also the title, why is private development aid more efficient than governmental aid? It's not a pro and contra, really. I must tell you in advance, it takes both. But we both groups have to try harder and make the dollar go further and draw knowledge and analysis from the 40, 50 years past where we have learned what development aid should look like. I'm quickly telling you who the Dear Foundation is and what I'm trying to say towards these two things. As I said, we're a donor foundation, and that is very important for you to know that we do not depend on what's en vogue aujourd'hui or today in the newspaper, because we can really stay where we feel the need is greatest and where we feel where we can have an impact which will lead in the long run to a better situation. Why is private aid more efficient? It's very easy. We have many, many obstacles, not which governments have. We are much more flexible, much faster in terms of taking decisions. We're, of course, more adjustable. And we have much less pressure. And pressure is something I would like to go into a little bit deeper. International political pressure is, let's say, Mr. Trump had a bad dream and decides today we're no more helping this and that country. It's cynical, but it's a reality today. 20 years ago, people who have been in the field like I have, we would not have dreamt of that this would ever be possible, but it is. Then we have external pressure. External pressure is also industry. I mean, the Swiss industry expects that the Swiss government does something good which helps their business through development aid. I mean, so many top managers accompany Mr. Schneider-Ammann or whoever it is to any country because they want to make deals. And it has to go hand in hand with promises, we will help you with schooling systems, with health systems, whatever. So the external political pressure is tremendously big. Then we have political stability. And I'm talking about our little country, which is more or less stable in many ways. But our partners, the recipients, are often not very stable. You may make a deal, a contract with a prime minister or even a president, and the next day he's gone and nothing is valuable anymore. I mean, we don't even have to go to Africa to see such things. They're happening much closer. And then we have voices, of course, which are getting stronger and stronger within Switzerland, that governmental aid is being connected to these take-back agreements with the countries. And this is, I can tell you, a very hard one. What our deep belief is that we believe human beings should have a worthy life, a happy life, where they belong. And that tells you that we don't want refugees or migrants living in containers in Switzerland, in Germany, wherever. We want them to have a decent life where they belong, but we have to help them. And this is something where we claim where we can react much faster than governmental aid. This is a little bit how we feel. David Nabarro, who has been leading the UN and the WHO together with Ban Ki-moon and no, not Gutierrez, then he left, Ban Ki-moon and Kofi Annan. He always kept asking me, Sonia, are you still sitting in your little nutshell? And at the beginning, I felt a bit insulted, and I thought he's making fun of me. And only much later, he explained to me what he meant. He said, look, you're sitting in your little nutshell. We have an earthquake today in Haiti or in Afghanistan. You make 5 phone calls in Switzerland, takes you 1 hour, and you have the first millions together to help and to deliver aid. So you turn left and go there. Me sitting in that supertanker, now it's a coincidence, it happens to be the Titanic, I can take the biggest decision, and 2 years from now, I will feel that. And that's the frustration so many people have in those mega, mega big institutions. Nevertheless, they're very important because the nutshells alone cannot do the job. These are a few of the players that we have in the sector. We have, in Switzerland, we have the actual number of 2017 is 1.8 billion Swiss francs have been collected privately. 1.8 billion. I find it quite an amazing number. If you compare it with that, the official Switzerland donates per year between 3 and 4 billion. So this is quite substantial. And then there is always the question, what kind of approach do we choose? Do we talk to governments and take the approach top-down, or do we come from bottom-up? And that is where we believe that women play a vital role, and even highly intelligent men have realized that. I'm sorry, I don't want to insult anybody. But we do know that if we give 500 francs or $500 to a woman, her children will profit from that. If we happen to give the same amount to a man, we don't know what's happening. That's a fact everybody knows. So women are really the backbone of any society which is stable in the long run. Then the other big thing I mentioned here, and I made it big, is recipients. It's the governments. Governments leaning back and waiting for the Europeans, for US aid, for UN, for whoever, to do their job, while they collect under certain situations, also corrupt situations, collect money. How do we avoid corruption? I mean, it's a very, very difficult field. And then we have the large-scale projects where usually companies are part of. I'm mentioning, for example, the Chinese investments in Africa. It's amazing what they do. They're building autoroutes and bridges and whatever you want. And it's important. But it should be much more than just that, because the interest is too much on their own benefit and not on the country where they're working. And all of this leads to the question of funding. We talked about it. Funding, the government spends tax money. And I, as a taxpayer, I expect them to do it wisely and efficiently. Funding of private organizations is either done by fundraising, or they have a fortune they can spend on. That's two different roles, and it makes quite a difference, because as soon as you're fundraising outside, you have to go with the things which are, I use the expression again, en vogue, what the press delivers. Syria is an issue. Palestine these days is just no news, but people are suffering terribly. So these are things which are very important to know. And the basis of all the things we do is really humanity. You may call it the Geneva Convention. whatever is human, that's our goal. And I would like to go quickly into one project that we have, that is DearMamma. Mama being the Latin name for breast. It's something we've been working now over 7 years on. I'm coming from IT, and I was always waiting until we had enough broad width, and all the women worldwide, most of the women worldwide, do have access to a smartphone. And this is one of the projects I would like to quickly go into, just to show you. Is that was it? 3 seconden? I spoiled it. I would like to quickly show you a movie, how it started, how the whole project started. Nogmaals? Oh. It's no shame. It's not something bad happening from God or Allah or whatever. It can happen to everybody.
אני לא גיליתי את המחלה, המחלה גילתה אותי, רק אחר כך אני גיליתי אותה.
אני פה, יש לי סרטן, אז מה? אני רוצה להיות שמח, אני רוצה לשמוח, והכובע הזה מאוד משמח אותי. עושה גם מוזיקה, שזה גם מצחיק.
My youngest was only 2 when I was diagnosed. So, my mom came in there and was able to be the mother when I was absent, when I was in the hospital or when I was in bed. Thank you.
לשים לב לתחושה של האוויר שנכנס בנחיריים.
There is an international language between the women they fight cancer. Each of them, she know what the other feel.
לא משנה איך היא נראית, מה היא לבושה, עם מטפחת, בלי מטפחת, אתיופית, ערבייה, יהודיה, יש להם מה להגיד, יש להם נוכחות.
لا الأرنب.
ואני מקווה מאוד שזאת הייתה הזדמנות בשבילכם להבין שאנחנו הצלחנו להתגבר על כל הפערים בינינו האחרים ולהתכנס ולהתמקד לנקודה אחת שבו אתם מתבוננות פנימה לתוך עצמכם והחוצה לחברות שלכם ומצליחות לראות איך הערכים האלה מעצימים אתכם. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for hearing me.
For us, you are heroes. We are just the helpers in all of this. And by sharing your story today and tomorrow, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of women worldwide, they will have role models like you so that they see we can talk openly about it.
For seeing me. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing me. And for not leaving me. And for not leaving. Why breast cancer? Has personal reasons. We've been working, as I said, 7-8 years now on the film, on the app. And why particularly this subject? It could be lung cancer, kidney cancer, whatever.
I came to realize, traveling through the world, whether Guatemala, Nigeria, Thailand, everywhere, I found leaflets where women were told what breast cancer is, but most people are illiterate. So this is why this film and the app is the worldwide first app for illiterate women, free of charge. And as of today, it exists in English, Spanish, French, Arabic, Hebrew, and German, I forgot. And more languages, of course, will follow. But we want to cover first the big parts of the world. And we want women to be aware that they do matter, that there is no shame if ever anybody has breast cancer. And we want them to give a tool to do a monthly self-check. You'll see it later in the demonstration how it works, so that they're safe. Because I must tell you, in Switzerland, I was appalled by the number. In Switzerland, every single day, 3 to 4 women die of breast cancer, and that with our health system. In Germany, it's 50 to 55. It's just not acceptable. If the women knew that they had to react much earlier, many of those women could survive. And this project example I just showed you is something no government would ever do, because these women don't have any power, buying power, they don't have any money, so they're totally forgotten. So this was one example why we felt we had to do it, because nobody else would. Now I would like to give the word to Micha Becker, who will quickly show you how this app works.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So we created this application to reach people on their most personal spaces nowadays. This is basically the mobile device. Every one of you is carrying a mobile device, even in Africa. And potentially we can reach 2.9 billion of mobile devices, only speaking of the Android system. So it's a large number, a large reachability. And of course, we also released a version for iOS just besides. So let me just, give me a second. I will just switch to the app and to show you a little bit more. So this is the app. So please keep in mind that the app is just a small part, a small contribution of the whole DearMamma campaign. It's basically a small brick, a small stone which completes the whole campaign. So it has the aim to serve as an additional extension to the movies you have seen before, for example, and at the same time, as Mrs. Dinner already said, to serve as a practical guide and tool for early breast cancer detection and prevention. So therefore, it was very, very important to not over-engineer and to not over-design the content, to consider also lingual and cultural and religious aspects and concerns and restraints in the app, and to keep the content as simple as possible in language, illustrations, film, and usability. So the app covers currently 6 languages, as we already heard: German, English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and Hebrew, in one installation bundle. And the app is working 100% offline, so there is no need for an internet connection once you have downloaded the app. It also it also offers a reading functionality for people who can't read or prefer to consume the content just by listening. So let's take a look at the app now. I will switch to the sound as well. So just activate the DearMamma.
Breast cancer awareness.
Yeah, this is
Learn about breast cancer. Save lives.
it's the reading functionality. And once you enter the app is divided in 4 main areas. It's about Y Care, about self-check functionality, changes, and I Care. So in Y Care, it's all about the educational aspects. I will just switch to this area. And it's about the motivation of the app and the campaign. The user will learn how to, in general, about breast cancer and why it is so important to care about it. Under Y Care, as you can see, we have a video implemented here. It's the forward of Mrs. Dinner, for example. Or if we go back, for example, you can just swipe and take a look at the facts about breast cancer in general. Very simple in the language, very simple in the illustrations, and of course...
It is not yet completely clear what causes breast cancer.
And it's also possible to read all the content we have included here. So in the next area, it's about the self-check, and this is the app as a tool.
Can we quickly go to the religious leaders?
Ah, yeah, we can do it.
Special women, sorry.
Yeah. So we also introduced some voices and statements from the religious leaders. If I go down into the area here, for example, of a statement of Rabbi Noam Hertig and Sheikh Omar al-Kizwani. One of the aspects here is the adaptation or the dynamic of the app. For example, if you switch the language into Arabic, the sorting here of the statements will be changed. So Arabic will be shown first because the app is in Arabic. Or if you switch to Hebrew, the Rabbi will be displayed first. This is what I meant before with cultural and religious sensitivity and concerns, which we also needed to reflect in the app. Yeah, and the breast cancer stories at the same time here about people also included with videos and the possibility to consume the content in this way. So let me switch to the second area, which is called self-check. And this means the app as a tool. What we included here is, in general, how do you perform a self-check? We included a video with some, how to do it, basically, how to use the app itself.
Continue checking your breasts thoroughly.
But we also included the self-check in illustrations where you can switch between the steps, how to perform self-check, and also then switch to the mirror functionality. And I think you see it here. This is very important because not everyone basically, in the villages or somewhere else in Africa doesn't have a mirror maybe. So you can use the camera and you can basically make a photo like this. Check, okay, where's the area? You can save the photo. And then you can select one of the states. For example, you're not quite sure. And in addition, if you can write, you can add a text. I would take this one here. Add a text. I can save it. And later on, I can go into the notices, and I will show you later on. For example, here my history. Here's the text, and later on I can even, if I want to, I can add a voice message. If I can't write or have difficulties, I can just record a message for my own. Yeah, today I had some issues, and now I will save it, and I have a history where I can see all my results I've recorded for my self-checks. So this is the app as a tool. It offers mirror functionality, which is very important in this case. And I have the possibility to use a shortcut, like to make a short response here, like, no, everything is fine, it's okay. And then the second part is that the app will give me the possibility to set a reminder, and the reminder is set for 28 days at this point. The app as a tool, as a practical tool on site for the users, for the woman, to perform self-checks. So the third area is changes in my breasts. which is about, okay, now I discovered something on my body. What do I do? And this area gives you the answer to, yeah, what can you do now? What should I do? You can go and, for example, talk to a doctor, giving people, the woman, an advice what to do in the next step, or check again in 2 weeks, or if the problem persists, go see a medic. You also have included some medical information, also videos again, and the possibility to read everything, or okay, I discovered something. What could it be? Is this something I have to worry about? Just some more information if there's something or if you noticed changes at this point. And the last area is the area of eye care. And here it's again more practical for the user. You have, I spoke before about the reminder where you can set up a reminder. For example, in let's say 28 days, I will set a reminder, and in 28 days the app will give me a short message, a pop-up message, and will tell me and will tell you or me, well, yeah, it's time for your next self-check. Please do it, and it will lead you into the self-check tool as we have seen before. In my history, I can see all the entries I just made, like here during the presentation, all on the 29th of August. And I can also add more entries as I want to do. It was also very important to give people the possibility to connect to the DearMamma community in all. So we decided to allow the possibility to make a connection to the Facebook group or Facebook fan page, the Facebook community of DearMamma. And at the same time, also very important, if you are able or if you like this app, to share the app with other people. So here I can, for example, share it via email, and it gives you a predefined text, or should give you a predefined text. Okay, and you can send this text to your friends or to other people who are affected by breast cancer. But it also works for WhatsApp or Facebook in this term. Okay, just let me close it. Now I close the app. At last, I would like to show you, okay, this is the English version of the app, but I would just switch the language. Let's say we have seen in the movie, we saw Hebrew. I think it's a good opportunity to show you how it looks like in the other language. The language is selected by the system properties of the mobile device. So if I switch to Hebrew, the app also should now, if I open the app, also should switch to Hebrew. And there you can see that we had to consider also different kind of layouts, right to left layout in Arabic and in Hebrew, but also at the same time, the content is read, or you can, it's, yeah, you have a speech functionality. And also here, let's go back into the first movie by Sonia Dinner. There's also a translation, a voice translation of the video.
Is a Swiss humanitarian
So I will stop the demonstration here. Thank you very much. I hope you got a good impression of the app and of the tool. And I hope you see the connection in between the big campaign, the big topics, and the app as a tool itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we can now open the floor for questions. So I would like to ask you to raise your hand, and I will give you the floor. Oui, Daniel, merci.
Voilà. Yes, so about your core statement that private aid is more efficient than public. So I think it's a very complex issue, and it has been more than 50 years of debates, books, and studies to pro and against this. Well, I would say it requires a lot of in-depth arguments to really be convincing on this. So I would like to ask you to discuss with you the following, that the private sector might be more efficient in many areas, but in development aid, in developing countries, it is very often disrupting, very often using tax evasion, child labor, human rights violations, environmental disruptions, and so on. So in your activity, how far do you try to work with the private sector in order to convince them to be more world citizens and committed with the sustainable development goals, and not just committed for the interests of their shareholders? So what are you doing in this respect?
I would just like to start with something. I want to be fair. The DEZA, the GZI in Germany, they have a tremendously difficult job. And they have barriers and constraints which we don't have. This is why for us to work properly is so much easier. And for them, it's much more difficult to have a look at all stakeholders and then take a decision and say, we do this project in this manner, or we do something else. But what we do is we do believe in people. And it's my experience over 20 years that you have to find people who do it with the right motivation. People in a governmental organization who basically do not realize whether they're working in a bank or an insurance or at the DEZA, there I have a problem. We do have a higher call, no matter on which level you are. And I do believe we try to avoid governmental bodies wherever possible. It's not possible everywhere. But we do work with grassroots organizations who have proven that they do work professionally. That is really important, because just having a good idea, seeing a desperate need, I mean, we all have a heart, it's not good enough. You have to have a round project, how to go in there. You have to win people over. We usually ask the people what they want. And it's one of our philosophies that we always say, there is nothing for free, nothing. Because when I'm sitting in Ghana with 12 elderly gentlemen and I ask them, do you want a hospital? Then they all say yes. If I say, well, would you rather have a fountain? They all say yes. And when I mention that, okay, we get you both, but with the fountain, you have to shovel 30% yourself, and with the hospital, the same. Then all of a sudden they say, well, the fountain, usually it works. Why don't we leave it? Or the hospital, well, it's 20 kilometers away, but we can walk there. So what I'm trying to say is the aid industry has made tremendous good, but it has also caused tremendous damage. And if you offer something to somebody for free, then you're doing two things. One is, I mean, if you would offer me Versailles to live in, I would say, thank you very much. Where is the gardener? But it would also make me purely to a recipient. And I'm too proud for that. These people all have a lot to give. So let them be part, they have to take charge, and they have to be part in it, whatever you do. But the things you're mentioning, that it goes deep into many subjects on the government side and on the private side, is correct. And I think it's only fair to say that for governments to have highly efficient projects, it's more difficult than for us. This is why we're trying to convince the DEZA, GZI, whoever, that they let the grassroots companies or us with our employees on the ground do the work, because we speak Creole in Haiti and not French, or we know the government there for 30 years. So that is really, really important. But then again, of course, government has the left parties think we're spending far too little for development aid. The right side thinks we're spending far too much. It doesn't do any good at all. And then there is a middle in between. And I think they're all somewhere right. But we have one golden rule in the Dear Foundation, and I wish I could implement that in the UN, the Red Cross, every big organization, every small organization. The only thing I'm saying, and it's not an academical sentence, only do what you would be willing to pay with your own private money. That's the point. It's not very scientific, but that's the point. So if I build a hospital wherever in the world in Africa, I will build it according to the local standard. And if the local standard is one sleeps on a clean mattress, then that's what I do. No beds. So this is really, I think, how we work and how we look at it. But your question goes very deep and is a matter for months.
Thank you very much. Maria?
Yeah, thank you. I was really going on the same way, you know. I believe on the public system and on the public funds. I know that you have a lot of challenges, that is really difficult, but I think you must know also what the Swiss cooperation have been doing for ages, and the results, even if sometimes it's difficult, there are some results. And that's what I don't like very much, to opposite the private with the public, because I think the viability of the projects, it doesn't depend on the private funds. It depends on the public funds, on the field. And I mean, you have a great program, and congratulations for your application. It's really good. But if all these people that are, you know, detecting a breast cancer on the field, they don't have public services where they can go, you know, to be taken charge by the public doctors, and that the services were doing nothing. And you know that if you want to work on the field with them, you need really to contact with the public service and support them. So I think you don't have to opposite one to the other. That's just my point. And I also have a question, because I have the impression you are working with the grassroots, which is very good, but you know, these countries have also very strong civil society, a lot of local NGOs, a lot of people that are already working, and I really wanted to hear you a bit more about how do you work with all these people on the field, because you know, they are the ones who can work also with the public system. Thank you.
We do work grassroots. Maybe it's a question of understanding. Grassroots includes all communal societies, whatever we have, and it's very different. Sometimes it's only female organizations, sometimes it's the men, sometimes a cause gets people together. So we're working with all of them. What we really want to do is to empower them, that they can carry on. We want only to give them a little help at the beginning, financially, maybe education, and then they have to carry on themselves. Because that is so, being humble, you don't want to give gifts and they have to thank you all the time. That was in the 40s and 50s at the beginning of aid, education and everything. But we want them to help them to get on their feet. And we found out, for example, in South Africa, a huge program was with AIDS orphans who lost both their parents. And we set up together with two partners a tremendous women's self program where over 700,000 children, orphans, were taking part of families, like foster families, where this mom says, okay, I have these 5 children, these are also mine, even though they're not, these are this one. So the civics of society is extremely important, and we use it wherever we can, because it also strengthens their feeling of empowerment and their feeling of belonging together. And they don't want us, really. So the goal really must be that one day, I keep dreaming, that one day all the NGOs are not necessary anymore, and neither governmental help. That's really the goal.
Yeah, I just wondered what the acronym, is it an acronym, DEAR, and what does it stand for?
You are dear to me. You're British, you understand it. Dear, I think we have a very ugly logo on the side, and I think we have a beautiful name. And like in this particular project, DearMamma, I think it's so beautiful to call the breast DearMamma, and we have other projects to come which are still called Dear ... And I think it's not an acronym. It's dear because human beings are dear to us.
I don't know if there's any more questions. If it's not the case, I would like to thank our speakers, to thank you for coming, and we can continue discussing about the app, about the foundation with a coffee at the back of the room. Thank you very much.
Can I just add one thing I forgot? Because it was an experience we had yesterday, which I have to tell you about. I mean, here we all are, some of the women, we're all the same age, and then there are some younger ones. We all have friends, relatives who fight breast cancer. Yesterday, we had a man from Bern, a wonderful man. He looked like you a little bit, who fights breast cancer for the last 7 years. And what I want you to know is that breast cancer occurs in men, and I would like to ask you to all download the app. Of course, it's a tiny percentage compared to the women. Just to give you a number, in Great Britain, every single year, 500 men are diagnosed with breast cancer. 500 new men are diagnosed. So it's very little, but it's growing. And medicine and the scientists have no clue why, but it's important. And the wonderful gentleman we got to know yesterday, together with his wife, he came from Bern, he is cured from breast cancer. He has a scar here, but he has metastasis on his bones. And he probably will be with us for another 2 years or a bit more. So please spread the word among your friends also, that men don't feel too safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.